Hi, Asal. Thank you again for joining me here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to connect with you today and to also share about just my experience and what I value in spending time alone and in silence.
In silence. Yes, I'm so excited about this one. So, please tell us a bit more about yourself. We had a podcast before on gratitude and the work that you do, but please tell our audience again to remind them. That would be great.
Yes, thank you. So, my work, I'm an oncology pharmacist, and I also work in the realm of wellness and self-care. My work initially started with guiding people in practicing gratitude, and that's really evolved into coaching individuals on supporting them in stepping out of burnout and living a more well-rounded life. In addition to that, I lead events on human connection, and it's been really a sweet journey so far, and I'm excited to see where it continues to go.
Beautiful. What inspired you to go on a Vipassana silent retreat?
Okay, it's a great question. So for those of you who don't know what Vipassana is, Vipassana is a type of meditation. It's a meditation center that's all meditation practice actually, where there are centers all over the world, and anyone and everyone can attend a 10-day silent meditation retreat, and you can attend as many times as you want. And you just need to apply and be committed to learning and honoring the practice. And it's not faith-based in any way. And my first Vipassana, I've only done one, and I do plan to do multiple ones throughout my lifetime if I can get there. I did my first one in 29 Palms in California, Southern California. And what inspired me to do that was a couple of different factors. I got into mindfulness and the mindfulness practice and meditation a few years ago, and then I was part of this UCLA program for a year, and with Mark, and that's also a great organization that provides different classes and whatnot. But being in that community and around that headspace, I found myself gravitating towards experiencing something that would leave a tremendous impact in my life. And prior to even getting into this meditation practice, I had a friend who, and he's like a mentor as well, he had told me, you should do Vipassana. If there are two things in life that I encourage all my children and the people that I work with to do, one of them is do the Vipassana retreat. And so I had attempted to apply and to get in prior to the pandemic, and it just didn't work out. And it was my intention for 2022 to do it, to get in. And I remember I was in Arizona at the time, and I was sitting in my hotel room, and I just pulled up my laptop, and I knew that the online registration was for that day. And I applied, and within 24 hours, I was accepted. And I thought, okay, I'm in flow. I'm meant to do this. And so I contacted my boss when I got back from my travels, and I'm like, hey, I need to leave again for another 10 days in April because I got accepted to attend this retreat. So on in the physical realm of things, from my mentors, from surrounding myself in a community of mindfulness and a meditation practice, and then from within, I just was craving something to experience something, like just to be with myself, because not talking for 10 days, I had never experienced that before. And I thought, well, if all these people all over the world for so many years have been doing this, why can't I? And what would my experience look like? And
Wow.
so I applied and I did it. And it was magical. It was great.
Yes, and I've had several friends do
Yeah.
this. And
Mhm.
so when you did, because I'm a bit closer to you, I was able to hear so much more than from the other people I know that have done it. And so it was so interesting. And I've always wanted to, but I heard about it after I got married and had kids.
Mm.
Had I known about it before, I would have definitely tried it out. But there are ones that are, because my sister has done the I think 3 or 4 day ones, the weekend. I know the 10 days are better, but for the people who can't do the 10 days for some reason because of kids or family obligations,
Uh-huh.
work,
Mm-hmm.
there are the other options, right?
Absolutely. It's not through the Dhamma org, it's not the Vipassana experience, but there are other organizations. Absolutely, you're right. There are other organizations and nonprofits and programs that do host and support individuals in experiencing what a silent meditation retreat looks like and the intentions behind them. And there's different ones, the beautiful thing about meditation and mindfulness is that there are different ways of practicing. And I think that's one thing with when someone takes on the experience of being silent with oneself and practicing mindfulness, and you, when you're practicing and experiencing it, you kind of discover, this works for me, this doesn't, this is triggering, this is challenging, I want to work towards this. And you find what works for you and what doesn't, and you take deeper steps into that practice. If
Yes.
that
Yes.
makes sense. Like I've worked with different meditation teachers before, and I found that with Vipassana, I was very connected to my body. And that was a very enlightening experience for me, and realizing like from the foundational, like the core lessons that I learned from the meditation experience, like it was very much in alignment with what I value and what I want to continue doing in my life.
Yes. And I wanted to bring you on because I feel it's so important to incorporate that in the creative practice. It's
Yeah.
good to go into that silence for ideas and downloads to come through because there's just so many distractions in the world. And
Mhm.
when we can silence that mind and not have so many of those distractions, then more creativity can come in and we can experience so much more than when we're out there in the crazy, hectic world.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, it's not just the creativity coming out, it's your inner voice speaking and
Your
you
inner
being able
voice.
to
Yes.
hear it. So I'm going to be mindful of like what I share about my Vipassana experience, because everyone's experience is different, can be different, will be different, is different. We are all different human beings. And I don't want to put that imprint on whoever is interested in doing a 10-day silent meditation and hasn't yet. At the same time, I will share some of my experiences of what came to my mind during those moments of being silent, when
Yes.
I didn't experience, when I didn't expect to hear or listen or experience whatever was within me.
Yes.
And in addition to that, before going into the details of my silent meditation experience, I wanted to touch on the idea of the importance of just being silent with oneself, because some of us may not think we can do 10 days alone in silence, and that means no cell phone, no writing, no reading, no talking, nothing. You're just silently meditating, maybe walking, eating, sleeping, showering, brushing your teeth, and that's it. And so that could be challenging for some people. And so the other opportunities are sitting with yourself for 5 minutes, just in complete silence,
Yes.
like this. like few seconds seems sometimes really long because we don't pause. And so, and I do find myself craving, and for the people that I work with, I also encourage them, spend time alone. Spend time alone in silence. And that doesn't necessarily mean sitting at home. It could mean going to the park and just walking in silence. Your phone is away. You're fully disconnected, or walking by the water, or even standing in the shower. And the water obviously is making noise, but you're in silence. Like there's the silence of there's no other external stimuli coming at you. You are just with yourself. And if you can focus on being so present in that moment and cutting everything else out, what shows up for you from within you? And that's that inner voice starting to talk, or the creative ideas, like boo, 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 you know, like they're just like firing like little bolts. I mean, that's my experience.
Right.
And and sometimes it's also to gain clarity. Like if you're not sure of something, to sit there and let go. Don't let the thoughts take over you, but take a step outside of your thoughts, and practice that awareness of, what are my thoughts about? What are my wants? Where am I gravitating towards, whether it's creating something or stopping something and starting something new, or whatever that may be.
Yeah.
So that's the portion I wanted to talk about in terms of just being silent with oneself. I think it's really important. The concept that I like to call it is it's either mindful meditation or me time, whatever that me time is. It's we have that opportunity to give that to ourselves, and we need to be mindful to make that time for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, whatever you can share,
Yeah.
what was it like there? And my question is also, in the beginning, was your mind going like crazy in a bit? I mean, I guess like, did it keep going? I call it the monkey brain,
Yeah.
where it just keeps going, going, going. And then maybe towards the end, did it quiet down more?
That's the yes. So, okay. Which I will answer first what I received during my experience in terms of creativity and my creative endeavors during my 10-day meditation, silent meditation, and then I'll address the like my mind racing and the thoughts racing, and then my mind quieting down. So, during that time, when you're in silence, you have an opportunity to walk. You can go on walking breaks. And so when I was walking, not during my meditation times, but when I was actively walking, what's the idea that constantly came to my mind was, I need to write a book.
Mm.
And I have resisted writing a book for many years, many, many years. And the book just kept coming up, and I'm like, okay, this year I will make it a point to at least start writing something, to share my story, to inspire people, because I know there are so many people in my shoes, being a young healthcare professional and being burnt out, and
Yes.
also seeking, like, how can I live a more enlightened, grateful life? So the book idea came to mind. The other one was my human connection events. Post COVID, I really put a pause on all of that. And pre-COVID, or during COVID.
Yeah.
And I'm getting back into it. And so I have started to invest a lot of my time and energy in creating these human connection events. Um, and expanding on that, and in terms of expanding, like scaling it where I never thought things could be possible, because I'm afraid, and I'll be the first to share it, but to just try, because that inner
Yeah.
voice was telling me, like, you got to do it.
And I want to interrupt just for a minute because
Yeah.
a lot of times that inner voice is also saying, what are you doing? You can't do this. What are you even thinking? So there are two, I feel like, that are
Yes.
fighting with each other. And
Yes.
this silence can bring out the the better voice.
It right. Well, and that's the thing. It's because there's no external stimuli and you're just with yourself.
Yes.
And those points, for me, my experience was halfway through. So around like day 5, day 6, it started getting really loud. That's all I would think about. The book, human connection events. And then the other one, which I haven't tapped into yet, but I'm going to do it. It's uh intention, like workshops or events, but with jewelry.
Mm.
So making bracelets and then partnering with different organizations to get people to be creative, but also so mindful of whatever their intentions are, that they're wearing it every day. And I do have mine as well. And that's something that again, I haven't started yet, but that was the third creative idea for myself. That really spoke to me during my Vipassana experience. In addition to that, I will say, when you're creative, as a creative soul, I think we are all very sensitive.
Yes.
So things start, for me, I started thinking about people who have impacted my life, people that I didn't think about for years. I'm talking like 20 years.
Wow.
These people would just like boop, show up in my mind. And I'm like, oh my God, whoa. And how did this person impact me? And I realized that, again, being intentional with creativity in mind, that the people who have come into my life, how they have impacted me as a human being, and what I am committed to creating on a creative level for the world. And I understand, like, I'm all about wellness and self-care and stepping out of burnout, but I'm also very creative and honoring that. And this meditation definitely opened my eyes to valuing and honoring, like, hold on to your creativity and continue to incorporate that in whatever you do, because there's only one of you, and you are, give it a shot. You're meant to do this. If you don't put it out there in the world, how are you going to not only express yourself, but inspire others to maybe put out whatever that it is that they want to put out, or inspire them to live a more connected life, or whatever the intentions are behind that creative project.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's
So cool.
yeah, that's what I got from around like day 5, from what I remember. And it was, by the end of it, I was like, because you can't write,
Mm-mm.
I found myself like holding on to certain ideas, and I wish that I could write, but I did this experience with a lot of integrity. And I spoke to you. You have like office hours and you can talk to your meditation guide. And the few questions that I asked during those 10 days, one of them was, I have so much I want to write, but I'm scared I'm going to forget. And she said to me, that's part of, this is part of your process.
Wow.
I know either it will come back to you, or it's, what's the word called? Not that it'll come back to you, but it's in there. It's subconsciously in there. And this is
Yes.
part of it will start showing up when it's meant to show up.
When
That's,
it's meant to.
yeah. And learning to let go, even to let go of that, to have that attachment of, because that I saw that as insecurity and fear within myself, versus, okay, this idea is here. And if I forget, I have faith that either a better idea is going to come around, or when the timing is right, something will trigger my mind to remember again and to move forward. And for the things that were really important, the creative ideas that did come to mind, they stuck with me.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's do you have any other follow-up questions in terms of the creativity portion? And then I can go back to the silencing of the mind and my thoughts.
Yeah, I think you touched on so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when several creatives I have interviewed said, like the ones who paint said,
Yeah.
just painting is a meditation for them.
Mhm.
So when I hear this, I always think, wow, if more of us can incorporate all these modalities into
Mhm.
our lives, because it's already there, we
Mhm.
already feel it when we're creating.
Mhm.
So this just enhances it, whether it's a sound bath, silent retreat,
Mhm.
meditating. Um, there are just so many different ones where it just makes it better. Yeah.
Better, and I think you honor what's within for it to come out. Like you invite it to
You
show
invite
up
it.
for you. Uh, I'm really glad that you actually brought this up. I was thinking about, so this was about a year ago, year and a half ago. I started drawing on terracotta pots.
I remember.
And that was a very meditative and healing experience for me because I was going through there was like a very intense shift in my life. And looking back now, those drawings of women was a representation of like having a Zen life. And for me, and I would spend hours on these pots just drawing by myself with a marker, black marker. And I've learned that whether it's the sound bath meditation, so the sound coming in and getting you into that very deep state, or actively doing something where you're so focused, but it's mindless, kind of, because you're just in creative flow, or sitting in silence, or running. I know like runners experience this as well. There's so many different ways you can go about doing this, and also the amount of time that you allocate towards it. Again, it could be a few minutes or it could be hours. That that silent time, that me time, contributes to inviting that inner voice to come out, and to honor what is it that you're seeking to create or to put out there or to just express from within,
Yes.
despite what's on the outside.
Yes. Instead of suppressing it, we tend to not trust ourselves or say, no, that's not good enough, or fear gets in the way.
And it does.
Yeah.
I for many years, and sometimes still to this day, like I'll get in my head and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I should, share this or post this or create it and whatnot. And I personally have gotten to a point where I I don't want to have any regrets in my life. And I think to myself, if I don't do this, if I don't even give it a shot, uh, am I gonna look back and say, like, I wish I should have
I
at least
wish.
tried?
Yeah.
And and then also looking for friends who you might look up to, or who may have a similar experience or had a similar experience, and just asking for that support. Because um there's one aspect to it, which is spending time with yourself, listening to your voice, knowing what you want to put out there, and then actually executing it.
Yes.
And that execution portion, that's where the other voice that you had mentioned the one that's that outer voice that just like suppresses you to no, don't do this, or people are going to judge you, or what are you doing, or you're not good enough, or this is wacky, or this is like, who's going to even pay attention to this, or like all these nonsense thoughts that aren't truths.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
just thoughts.
They're thoughts and they're trying to protect you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of
they're trying to
what?
protect you of possibly thinking you might get hurt or embarrassed or humiliated. I don't know. There's a list
Yeah.
of things that come
Yeah.
up where,
Yeah.
and it could come from childhood. Who knows? Or like
Yeah.
society, or what your parents said, or what did the adults said when you were growing up.
Or your current community, like what's
Yeah.
around you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, I get, yeah, I totally hear you, and I totally get that. I've experienced, I think we all experience it, believe it or not.
We
All
have.
of us.
And it's to have the courage to get out of that and to do the things that feel right for you and to
Mm.
show who you really are and bring out your true self instead of the mask.
And, yes, and with that, it's to know that sometimes, or maybe all the time, it's 100,000% okay to ask for help and support.
Yes. You don't
Put
have to do it
yourself
all
out there.
yourself. Yeah. You
There
don't.
have been, there have been times I've reached out to you. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking of, what do I do?
Yeah.
And or my friends, my mentors, my coaches, my all these individuals who who see your potential, who see
Yes.
the light in you, who see your talent, and sometimes you don't see it in yourself,
Yes.
and you just need that push. And so I think it goes hand in hand with like the me time, the alone time, the silent time. Your inner voice comes out, the one that, again, being mindful of, we're talking about the creative world, right?
Yes.
And then what comes with that is actually executing it and putting it out there in the world.
Yes.
uh and my first experience with all of this was my gratitude grams.
Mm,
When I created those little cards.
yes. I love
it,
those.
thank you. It took me 6 months to just sit with the idea and be like, okay, I'm gonna make something of this. But I finally did it. And it was just sharing with people and hearing people tell me, oh, this is a great idea. Do it, do it, do it. And I was like, all right, I have a team of like random strangers and people who are in support of this. I'm going to make this happen. So I think so for you creatives out there, if you have an idea and you're nervous, email me. I'm happy to support you. I've been there, and I want people to thrive in self-expression, because
Yes.
we only have one life to live. We got to make the
Absolutely.
best of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so going back to the question
Yeah.
about
The
how
silent
was your
night.
mind in the
Mm,
beginning of the retreat compared to the end?
okay.
Your experience.
Yeah. So I will say I'm a very busy person. I have a lot going on. I have 2 jobs. I travel a lot. I'm committed to my friends and my family. And with that said, I was I was so craving to just be quiet, because my mind, like, so many ideas, so many things. I was like, I'm going to take a vacation from life right now and go this silent meditation. And I knew that my thoughts would be racing. Because I practice meditation, I can turn the thoughts off. They don't turn off 100%, but I can like definitely scale it down. So I will say, the first night when you go into silence, there was a sense of peace and ease, knowing like I don't have to think about anything but being with myself for the next 10 days.
Mm,
However, when you're silent, then your awareness is incredibly heightened. So I'm going to give you an example. I was in silence and you eat silently. So my thoughts started gravitating towards how I hold my fork, how often I chew, how much I'm eating, what I'm drinking, what I chose to drink that day. So the thoughts they weren't racing anymore, but they were just more focused on in that moment, present. During the meditation, I do have a very wandering mind. And that's the point of meditating. I mean, with the Vipassana practice, how they teach you, it's always like coming back to and focusing. It's either your breath or your body. And you learn that they teach you how to do it. So it was a lot of getting myself back to being focused. And I would say thousands, and sometimes it's exhausting because you're like, oh my God, my thoughts, like, how did I even get to where I'm at right now? I need to go back to,
It's like a child in a swing. It just keeps going.
yeah.
Come back.
And it was like a wave. So there were days or moments throughout the day where it was really, really loud. And then there were times where it was so quiet. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so nice.
So nice.
This is so nice. Like, this is what, like, I was levitating from my seat. And
So cool.
before I left, I was very like I remember like I had a taste of like, okay, I can just get into the meditation.
Yeah.
It's because you're stripped of sound, writing, your phone, visuals, television, music.
Did it help your intuition?
Oh, that's a good one. Did it help my intuition? I think
Like in
it
making
helped me.
choices,
It
like,
helped me. It didn't help my intuition is already there. I'll say this. It helped me trust my intuition more.
mm.
Okay, so the intuition is there. It's just, what are you
Oh
going to
yeah,
do
it's
with it?
always there.
It's always there. What are you going to
It's
do with
always
it?
there. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I feel like as kids, we not all, but have been taught not to trust it, where adults might say, oh, it's just in your head and
Mhm.
don't think about it. And I always tell my daughter, like, how do you feel? Like, what are you feeling right now? What is your intuition telling you?
That inner voice, that quiet voice.
Yes.
You can't explain it, but it's just,
Yes.
yeah. For me personally, and for someone who believes in intuition, I know a lot of people don't, that I was like, oh, my connection to my intuition is stronger.
Yes.
Tying this again back to for the creatives out there in the world, the book. My intuition kept telling me, you got to write a book.
Mm.
Have to write the book. I'm not a writer. I'm a pharmacist. I'm very science-based and I'm creative. Like I do creative things. I don't write. And I kept battling in like the present Asal, the Asal that's out there in the everyday world. Like, no, you're not gonna write a book. Like, what is this book? Like, why me? What do I have to share with the world? However, that inner voice kept telling me, write the book. You have to write the book. You have to write the book about the patients that you worked with, the impact that they had in your life, where that got you today, what you're doing with it now. How can you inspire other young professionals or people who are going through stuff?
Yes.
Like, what are the messages from your life experience that you can gift to others to learn about? And that ties in with the intuitive voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Did you ever get frustrated or bored from not being able to talk? What was your mind like thinking or going through and like, okay, this has been day 6 and I just want to go and do go out to lunch, with my friend right now. I'd rather be doing that.
Mm. So I didn't want to leave.
Wow.
I didn't want to come back. I was like, I could do this for another 20 days.
Wow.
Really okay with it. I think it was because I started connecting with myself. And I'm someone I have spent many I've spent extensive moments and days with myself alone. I like my me days. I went to Mexico alone for a little over a week earlier this year. One of the best trips of my life. Just
Amazing.
being by the water in this beach town alone and journaling. I mean, I was journaling and I was doing yoga and, you know, but it was a lot of me time. And I was quiet to myself. So I re-energized that way too. A lot of people think I'm extroverted, but I've learned that actually it's a lot of just spending time alone. So not being able to speak, no, didn't, I wasn't frustrated in that sense. I'll tell you what did frustrate me. I wanted to create. I
Mm.
couldn't.
I know. That's what I think about. I'm like, oh, that would be
So that's where
because
I
I'm
found
just
my, yeah.
always thinking about creating.
Uh-huh.
What can I do next? What can
What
I
can
put out there next? What?
that was the only the from what I remember. Um, I was I was like, I cannot wait to get to my car and rip out that journal and start bullet pointing all the things that I want to do because I don't want to forget these
Yes.
thoughts, these ideas. And who do I need to call? What do I need to do? How can I get this project started? Um, that's where I got frustrated because I was like, I have to sit through this and I have to finish it. And I hope that I don't forget these ideas. And not only do I hope that I don't forget these ideas, but that the energy that I had in that moment, that it stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
That force of the thoughts, like what to put out there, like how to really get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Again, I have worked on myself to independently do that. I know we had touched on like if you need the support, go and ask. Don't stop, don't hold yourself back. The ideas out there, it's time to execute.
Yes.
But yeah, that was, to answer your question, that's what I got frustrated with because I couldn't create.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, I can relate. If I went, I'm sure, and I don't know, I'd have that feeling too.
I, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt, but I will say
Uh-huh.
that I wanted to add this. The pro to not creating is that then your ideas start to heighten even more and
Yes.
you start branching out into other ideas because
Yes.
you're not physically doing. Now your mind is working. So you're winning either way.
You have a pause, which a creative pause, which is important as well.
Yes, it's the
Yes.
creative pause and it's I sense that because you're meant to be in that whatever that moment is, if like you're committed to those 10 days, for example, that it's serving you so well that when you're out of it, it's you, whatever you're going to create is really a product of what you were experiencing during that time.
Yes. And you had mentioned that there were several people there that was their second or third or fourth, like they've done this several times.
Yeah. I met people from Brazil. I've met people like all over the world. This one in Southern California, there are a lot of Californians.
Mhm.
but it's really cool. Like I know someone who's been there, who's not to that center specifically, but who has done the Vipassana 10-day meditation for I think like 12 times.
Wow.
And all over throughout the world, not just.
I'm sure it also helps you regulate your emotions, like to pause before you get upset or angry or you snap at someone or say something you might regret.
Yes. So Viktor Frankl has this quote, between stimulus and response, there's that space. And I'm not, forgive me, it's not the exact quote, but between stimulus and response, there's that space, and within that space, we have a choice.
Mhm.
That's what you own. And yes, with the mindfulness meditation practice, what it teaches you is the way the practice is set to be, and you as the individual doing it, that practice then starts dissipating throughout your outside world, your life. And it's that raised awareness of your connection to your body and your mind. And we're always in a constant state of change. Nothing is forever, and being mindful of that.
Yes.
And then also, like, are you going to react to that response, or can you just be present with it? And what are you going to do?
Well, yes, exactly.
And that's just one of the many things I learned from the meditation practice. But yes.
And it's also donation based, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's, you just pay whatever you can pay. You don't have to pay anything if you don't want to. It's all donation based. The entire organization and all of their facilities are run by volunteers. So once you've done the 10-day silent meditation retreat, you can go and volunteer in the kitchen area to make food. The meals are made by volunteers every single day, fresh. It's very clean, delicious, good food, clean facilities. And then you can also donate, and the donations really 100% of it goes back into maintaining the centers, building them, expanding them. And it's really a beautiful community to be part of, and you have no obligation. Like the way that it was founded was that everyone should have access to this.
To this, yes. I wonder, like, it would be interesting to talk to the person who, from their first experience, what that was, to their 12th experience and the growth they had and what each one brought them. That would be an interesting conversation and probably a beautiful conversation to have.
And
Really
people do
cool.
it for many different reasons. Sometimes it's to reset, sometimes it's, again, self-discovery, or they're going through a tough time, or one chapter is closing, a new one is opening, or just wanting to be in that space. Because when you meditate, so this was another thing, I didn't bring this up, but when you're in that space meditating with a group of people, it's really powerful.
Oh, I'm sure. It's that
It's,
collective energy. It amplifies
and you're very safe.
everything. Very
Yes.
safe.
Oh yeah, and that's another thing I wanted to share, is that when you're in a safe space and you learn to be safe with yourself, that's when your voice really starts to speak up too.
Yes.
And for some of us, it may take a little longer, and that's okay. I invite you to just stay consistent with it.
I think it's so important. You were talking about that earlier, is taking time to be with yourself. So many of us run away from ourselves and attach ourselves to other people to give us company, to make us feel better, to say the right words. And all that is so temporary, because at the end of the day, you're going to be with you. And it's important. I didn't realize the importance until I remember one friend was like, yeah, I go have lunch by myself. And I was like, you do? I've never I've never done that, or go to the movies by myself. And
Mhm.
it's never dawned on me to do that. And then after that, I started to doing slowly, I started doing things by myself that I'd never done before, like go just get have lunch and read a book at a cafe.
Mhm.
You know, it's something I feel many run away from.
Yeah. Um, yes, and I invite people to really take it on to try it. This past year I've gone to concerts alone. I went dancing alone. I've traveled alone. I go to restaurants alone, and I sometimes it's intentional. I just want to be alone. And my friends will ask me like, "Oh, did you meet anybody? Did you talk to anybody?" I'm like, "Nope." And I didn't want to. Just wanted to experience it alone, and I'm okay with that. I like it.
That's a gift. That's a gift to give yourself.
Yeah.
People see it as why would anyone want to be by themselves? But
And
that's, I feel what society has told us is that being alone is not a good thing. But I don't, because I like there are times where I just shut the door, my studio space, and I'm like, okay, family, I need my time. And they know.
Mhm.
Whereas in the beginning, it was like, why is mom just locking herself, or my husband, why is she just locked up in her room? And now he understands she needs that time to reset and
Mhm.
to come back.
Mhm. Or sometimes it's not even like yes, resetting. Or for me, I like to spend time alone with myself to regroup my thoughts.
Regroup. Yes.
Mhm.
That's regroup your
and and
thoughts.
and
Yes.
and be intentional with my time. Like, okay, I've given myself this me time. I feel really energized now that I'm going to go back to reality and back to connecting with people and back to all my commitments. Where am I going to allocate all of this time so that I can show up 100% for my community, for what
Yeah.
I'm up to, for where I put my time and energy to.
Another thing I just came to me
Yeah.
is that I'm sure you become uh, more present, because I've noticed it with you. You were before, when someone talks to you and you're really listening. You're
Mhm.
listening to them. You're not interrupting. Like, I feel like that's something I am trying to be more aware of. And especially doing these podcasts have taught me,
Mhm.
let the person finish. Because I would listen to myself. I'm like, wow, I interrupted them a lot. So
Oh,
let them
interesting.
let
Okay.
them finish. And then I'm able to bring that into my own life as well, where I'm like, okay, let them finish and then speak.
Mhm. Mhm. So you mentioning like being present with people. Yeah. That I think that comes with mindfulness,
Yeah.
practicing mindfulness,
Yeah.
and also being comfortable with silence.
Yes. And that's something,
Yeah.
because I was a very, very shy person, and I was silent a lot, and it made people uncomfortable, and I would notice it. And inside I would kind of like going kind of giggle inside, like, and seeing that at a young age made me think, like, why is this so bad? Like, why is it bad to be quiet? Why is it bad not to talk so much? It's, I think that's a gift too, when people come, the quiet people come, the shy people come into this world.
Mhm. Mhm.
Why is it? Because they're the ones who are observant and who are more mindful of what comes out of their mouths. Why
Mhm.
is that? So for me, it's also bringing that awareness that if your child is shy or they're
Mhm.
quiet, it's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
And look at me now, like, I talk and I do these podcasts, and I
Mhm.
share my work, and So, but it's in a way that now is a positive way, and it's I came out of that fear
Mm-hmm.
and coming to that realization that talking isn't always a bad, like you don't have to worry about saying the wrong things all the time. But there's also this beauty in the silence, and
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing wrong with that.
100%. And I really appreciate you sharing your experience. And if it's all right, I'd like to share my experience that mine was the opposite. So
Mm.
I,
Opposites attract, right? That's why we're
yeah,
friends.
yeah, opposite in terms of for people who personally know me or being in social settings. And I don't mean to say this to toot my own horn or anything. I know this about myself. I can walk into a room of hundreds of people and engage with the entire room
Oh,
and
yes,
attract
I've
that.
seen it. I've seen
Yeah.
it. And that's a quality I always admired in
Oh,
others
thank
that I
you.
could not bring myself to do. I've gotten better, but yes, it's a gift.
Thank you. And I will say, so I'm just being very open and transparent. So years ago, I would go to these like events and people like I didn't know a lot of people. And before walking in, I'm like, all right, it's game time. How many people am I going to meet? How loud am I going to be for people to notice me, to see me, to gravitate towards me? And I've mastered it. I think I've mastered it to the point that I'm comfortable doing. And over the years, though, I realized I was exhausted and I was like, how did that serve me? What was the point of me doing that
Mm.
or showing up to a group of people in front of a group of people to do that? And sometimes I would, it wasn't even me. My friends would be like, oh, you talk or you lead or whatever. And from this mindfulness practice and working on myself and working with people, I have found myself like enjoying going to social events and just talking to one or two people in the corner and being so present. I just want to listen and hear what this person has to say. And when I do that, then the questions start coming out. I recently met someone and this person, he was like, you are the queen of questions. You ask these kinds of questions. Like no one has asked me these kinds of questions before. How do you do it? And I'm like, I'm listening to you and I'm
Mm.
curious about you and I want to get to know you. And the only way for me to do that is to give you the opportunity to share. If I'm talking, how are you speaking?
Yes, and so many people don't do that. And it's something to be aware of when you have a conversation with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loves to be heard and to be
Yeah.
seen. And yeah.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. On top of that, I was going to say that it's another mindfulness practice
Yes.
because majority of us are, as the other person is speaking, we're already thinking about how am I going to respond
Yes. Yes.
versus let me, what is the greatest gift I can give to a human being? And that's my time and attention.
Yeah.
And I really strive for that. And when you can do that, then um, that mindfulness, and again, I think it ties into like being with yourself, being present, practicing the alone time, the quiet time. So instead of being go, 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 and being uncomfortable, familiarizing yourself, your body, your mind, your thoughts to a very quiet, safe, silent place, however that may show up for you. And then how can you show up for others to create that, to then create meaningful connections?
And to give yourself permission to take that pause,
Mhm.
whether it is to take that time out for yourself and be alone with yourself, or when you're talking to someone, it's okay if there's that pause in between asking questions, just being present, because we feel like we have to fill up that quiet space all the time.
Mhm.
And it becomes uncomfortable for us.
Mhm.
And to let go of that and just be okay with quiet.
Mhm. And for us who are comfortable with that, sometimes it still can be uncomfortable, and
Yes,
that's okay too.
that's okay too.
Yes,
It's
I
okay.
think
Leaning
that
into it,
leaning
leaning
into
into
it,
the
life is
uncomfortableness.
it's being on a constant journey of growth and self-discovery.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, where can people find you and possibly have a coaching session with you? Do you incorporate this now in your coaching?
Yeah, I do actually. So I started I'm going to be launching a 12-week program. So I currently work with private clients, but I'm also doing I'm launching a 12-week program where it's in a group setting, and one of the fundamental lessons is me time. And me time incorporates just time to yourself. There's also another fundamental lesson, that's mindfulness and meditation. But again, everybody is different, and taking the time to discover within yourself what resonates with you. So to answer your question, people can find me on Instagram at Asal Dean. I do have a website, asaldean.com, or they can email me personally, asal@asaldean.com, or they can reach me through you, Sheryl.
Yes.
I work with people who really want to get on that journey of stepping, whether you're burnt out or not, but majority of us are, uh creating your best life, um and enjoying it, and what comes with that, and being there to discover that.
Beautiful. Thank you,
Thank you. Of
Asal, for being here with me again today and being so supportive.
course,
And
I feel honored.
yeah, I couldn't wait to interview you after I remember we talked about it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I interview you after your retreat, and it happened. So it was a beautiful conversation. I hope a lot of people hear this and or whoever's meant to. So thank you.
Thank you for inviting me again. And if people have questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Yes,
This
absolutely.
is a supportive community of inspiration and creativity, expanding creativity, and what's tied in with that. And I think definitely listening to your inner voice and having that time to yourself, that silence, is key.
100%. 100%.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me share my experiences, and what I think is of contribution to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.